The Trojan horse disaster, 1184 BC. So imagine you're defending your city. You've been at war for 10 years. The enemy finally gives up and sails away, leaving behind this massive wooden horse as a gift to the gods. What do? If you're the Trojans, apparently, you wheel that thing right into your city. The Greeks had been trying to break through Troy's walls for a decade during the Trojan War. Nothing worked. These walls were insane. So Odysseus comes up with this plan that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but somehow works. They build this giant wooden horse, hide their best soldiers inside, and pretend to sail away. Now, here's where the blunder happens. A Trojan priest named Laocoon literally warns everyone. He says, "I fear the Greeks even when they bring gifts." He even throws a spear at the horse. But the Trojans? They don't listen. They think the horse is a peace offering and drag it inside their walls during their victory celebration. That night, while everyone's passed out from celebrating, Greek soldiers climb out of the horse, open the gates, and let their entire army in. Troy falls in a single night. An entire civilization gone because they accepted a suspicious gift from their enemies. The aftermath? Troy was completely destroyed. The survivors were killed or enslaved. This single mistake ended one of the most powerful cities in the ancient world and became the ultimate example of, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Napoleon's Russian winter invasion, 1812. Here's a question. If you're planning to invade Russia, what's the one thing you need to consider? The winter. It's literally the most important factor. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's greatest military minds, somehow forgot this basic fact. In June 1812, he marched into Russia with the Grande Armée, over 600,000 soldiers, the largest European army ever assembled at that time. The Russians used a strategy called scorched earth. They just kept retreating, burning everything as they went. Crops, villages, supplies, everything. Napoleon kept chasing them deeper and deeper into Russia, thinking he'd get that one decisive battle. He finally captured Moscow in September. But here's the thing. The city was abandoned and burning. There was nothing there. No supplies, no surrender, nothing. Napoleon waited in Moscow for 5 weeks, expecting Tsar Alexander I to negotiate. He never did. Then reality hit. It was October, and Napoleon was 1,500 miles from home with winter coming. He finally ordered a retreat, but it was too late. The Russian winter of 1812 was brutal. We're talking temperatures dropping to -40 degrees Celsius. His soldiers started dying by the thousands, every single day. They had no food, no winter clothing, and the Russians kept attacking their flanks. Men froze to death in their sleep. Horses died and were eaten. Soldiers burned books, furniture, and anything to stay warm. Out of 600,000 soldiers, only around 100,000 made it back. Some estimates say as few as 10,000 combat-ready soldiers survived. It's one of the deadliest military disasters in history. This catastrophic failure shattered Napoleon's reputation of invincibility, emboldened his enemies across Europe, and set the stage for his eventual defeat. All because he underestimated winter and overestimated his ability to make Russia surrender. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, 1914. All right, this one's wild because it involves the most absurd series of accidents that led to World War I. June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria is visiting Sarajevo. There's already a plot to kill him by a group called the Black Hand, Serbian nationalists who want Bosnia to be free from Austro-Hungarian rule. The first assassination attempt happens that morning. A conspirator throws a bomb at the Archduke's car. Franz Ferdinand sees it, and his driver speeds up. The bomb bounces off, explodes under the next car, and injures several people. The assassin tries to kill himself by swallowing cyanide and jumping into a river, but the cyanide has expired and the river is only a few inches deep. He just gets arrested, soaking wet. Franz Ferdinand continues with his day. Here's the blunder. Someone decides he should visit the people injured by the bomb at the hospital. Noble, right? Except nobody tells the drivers about the route change. So the Archduke's car is driving through Sarajevo, and the driver takes a wrong turn onto Franz Josef Street. An official yells at him to stop and back up, and right at that moment, purely by chance, sitting at a cafe on that exact street, is another assassin named Gavrilo Princip. Princip literally couldn't believe his luck. The car stopped directly in front of him. He walked up and shot Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie at point-blank range. Both died within the hour. This one assassination triggered a chain reaction. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia. Russia backed Serbia. Germany backed Austria-Hungary. France backed Russia. Britain got pulled in. Within 6 weeks, all of Europe was at war. World War I killed over 17 million people. It redrew the map of Europe, destroyed empires, and set the conditions for World War II. All because a driver took a wrong turn and stopped right in front of an assassin having coffee. Hitler's blunder at Dunkirk, May 1940. The Germans are absolutely crushing the Allied forces in France. The British Expeditionary Force and French troops are trapped at Dunkirk, a beach town on the northern coast of France. Over 400,000 soldiers, sitting ducks, with their backs to the English Channel. German tanks are just 10 miles away. They could have rolled in and captured or killed everyone. It would have been a complete catastrophe for Britain and probably would have knocked them out of the war entirely. Then, Hitler makes one of the worst decisions of World War II. He orders the tanks to stop. Why? There's still debate about this, but the main reasons seem to be that Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, convinced Hitler that his air force could destroy the trapped soldiers from above. Also, some generals worried the tanks would get bogged down in the marshy terrain around Dunkirk, so the tanks stopped for 3 days. This gave the British just enough time to organize Operation Dynamo, one of the most remarkable evacuations in history. They sent every boat they could find, military ships, fishing boats, private yachts, pleasure crafts, everything. Over 900 vessels crossed the channel. Despite constant German air attacks, they managed to evacuate 338,226 soldiers between May 26th and June 4th. It was called the Miracle of Dunkirk. If Hitler hadn't stopped those tanks, Britain would have lost most of its professional army. They might have been forced to negotiate peace. The entire course of World War II could have been different. There might not have been a D-Day invasion, no Western Front, maybe even a Nazi-dominated Europe. Churchill himself said that wars are not won by evacuations, but this evacuation saved Britain's ability to keep fighting, all because Hitler hesitated for 3 days. The Chernobyl safety test, 1986. Engineers at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine are planning to run a safety test on reactor number 4. The test was supposed to see if, during a power outage, the reactor's slowing turbine could generate enough electricity to keep the cooling system running until backup generators kicked in. Sounds reasonable, right? Except everything that could go wrong did go wrong, mostly because of human error and terrible decisions. First blunder. The test kept getting delayed. It was supposed to happen during the day shift with experienced personnel. Instead, it got pushed to the night shift with a less experienced crew. Second blunder. To run the test, they had to reduce the reactor's power output, but they reduced it too much, way below the safe level. The reactor became unstable. Third blunder. The operators disabled multiple safety systems because they thought these systems would interfere with the test. They literally turned off the emergency cooling system and other automatic shutdown mechanisms. Fourth blunder. When the reactor became dangerously unstable, instead of shutting everything down, they tried to continue the test. At 1:23 a.m., they pushed the emergency shutdown button. But it was too late. Due to a design flaw in the control rods and the reactor's unstable state, pressing the button actually triggered a massive power surge rather than shutting things down. 2 explosions ripped through the reactor. The roof blew off. The core was exposed. Radioactive material started pouring into the atmosphere. Fires broke out, sending radioactive smoke across Europe. The immediate aftermath? 2 plant workers died that night. 28 more died from acute radiation syndrome in the following weeks. But the long-term effects were catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated. An entire city, Pripyat, became a ghost town overnight. The radiation spread across Ukraine, Belarus, and into Europe. Estimates suggest thousands developed cancer because of the radiation exposure. An area of 1,000 square miles around the plant, called the exclusion zone, is still largely uninhabitable today. The Chernobyl disaster became the worst nuclear accident in history. It cost billions, destroyed lives, and contributed to the fall of the Soviet Union because it exposed the government's incompetence and culture of secrecy. All because a routine safety test went catastrophically wrong due to a series of terrible human decisions. The Challenger Space Shuttle disaster, January 28, 1986. The Space Shuttle Challenger is about to launch on its 10th mission. On board are 7 crew members, including Krista McAuliffe, a high school teacher who was supposed to be the first civilian in space. Millions of people, especially school children, were watching live. But there was a problem that morning. It was cold, really cold for Florida. Temperatures dropped to around 31 degrees Fahrenheit the night before the launch. Engineers from Morton Thiokol, the company that built the solid rocket boosters, were seriously worried. These boosters had O-rings, rubber seals that prevented hot gases from escaping during launch. The engineers knew these O-rings became less flexible in cold temperatures and might fail. The night before launch, engineers recommended postponing. They presented data showing O-ring problems in previous launches when temperatures were low. They literally begged NASA to delay. But here's where the blunder happened. NASA managers were under enormous pressure. The launch had already been delayed multiple times. There was media attention, political pressure, and the Teacher in Space program was a big PR deal. They questioned the engineers' data and asked them to prove it was unsafe to launch, rather than proving it was safe. Thiokol managers, feeling the pressure, overruled their own engineers and gave approval for launch. At 11:38 a.m., Challenger lifted off. Everything looked normal for 58 seconds. Then, at 73 seconds into the flight, a massive fireball appeared. The shuttle broke apart. All 7 crew members died instantly. What happened? Exactly what the engineers feared. The cold temperatures made the O-rings stiff. Hot gases escaped through a joint in the right solid rocket booster, creating a flame that burned through the external fuel tank. The tank exploded, and aerodynamic forces tore the shuttle apart. The investigation revealed a catastrophic failure in decision-making. Managers ignored expert warnings. Organizational pressure overrode safety concerns. The Rogers Commission, which investigated the disaster, found that NASA's culture had serious problems. The Challenger disaster killed 7 people, including a civilian teacher, traumatized a generation of school children who watched it live, grounded the shuttle program for nearly 3 years, and cost billions of dollars. It fundamentally changed how NASA approached safety, all because managers ignored engineers who knew exactly what would happen in cold weather.